All right, let's start off with a physics review. So I created a puzzle. So I want you guys to work on this individually. So go to your physics course. And what you're going to do is go under modules and you're going to click on summer semester review puzzle. Okay, so when you do that, it should come up like this. Okay, let me know if anybody has any issues coming to that puzzle. Everybody able to get to it?
Where did you say it was again? I'm sorry. Semester, summer semester review was under modules?
Yeah, yes. Under physics 453B. Modules and then summer review. And it's the first link, summer semester review puzzle. So it looks something like this. So this is kind of a matching puzzle. So you can see here we have a left column and we have a right column. So what you're going to do is just, you could start really anywhere. There's a lot of puzzle pieces, but just really start anywhere. So let's say Z gradient. So you kind of have to look through here and kind of see what the matching card is for a Z gradient. So just as a reminder, we have three different gradients for our three orthogonal planes, X, Y, and Z. And in class, I mentioned what type of slice you get when you turn on your Z gradient. So we talked about the Z gradient being associated with the axial slice. So find your axial card, see if it matches up. And if it does, you'll get this green and they'll connect them. I haven't really tried it if I try something wrong. So let's say spin lattice. Spin lattice is another name for T1 recovery. Let's try T2 decay. Doesn't work. So you got to find something different. So you can see here how this kind of works. But go ahead, and I already gave you kind of two, but try and solve the puzzle. So you're going to see different cards. It's going to take you a little while to figure out maybe it's matching card, but take some time and fill out this puzzle. And the first one to fill it out will share their screen, okay?
So you said if it doesn't work, it won't fit into that.
Yeah, it won't give this green bar right here.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So when they do match, you'll get this green bar that goes, all right, we found a match. All right, so it's 10:22. Why don't we give you guys like 20 minutes? Take your time. Something happens with your connection or the website's not working, let me know. But work on this individually. So let's try and zoom in on the right side there. right, let's go over the rationale behind each one of these, okay? Let me see, show of hands, just how many people were able to get this done. If you didn't get it done in time, that's totally fine. You know, this is a review. But did anybody else finish besides Tisha? Good luck. All right. Well, good job, Tisha. So let's kind of see and talk about the relationship. I think it's really important that you guys get good at quickly relating these concepts visually and just kind of quickly like a word reference. So I think these puzzles really help out because when it comes to MR registry, you're not going to know everything. Let's just, no matter how much you study, unfortunately, there's just a good amount of material that you're never going to feel 100% ready to take the MR registry. And I always tell the students, you know, when they're wavering about taking the registry, I say, if you know 85 to 90% of the material, go ahead and take the registry because you're ready. You're going to pass. You're going to score well. But there's just no way of knowing all the material on this MRI registry. So sometimes if you don't know the true definition of everything, at least know what or who it associates with, because that's half the battle. So if you don't remember the exact definition of spin lattice, know it relates to T1 recovery. Same with spin T2 decay. But I will go over how these are related so that you guys have a better understanding. So I think I'm recording this. All right, so T1 recovery is also called spin lattice because we're talking about how the hydrogen proton releases energy to its surrounding environment. Remember, lattice is another name for environment. So spin of hydrogen releasing energy to the lattice, spin lattice, T1 recovery. T2 decay is called spin-spin because we're giving off energy to its neighboring spins. So two spins are close to one another, causing them to dephase, give energy off, and they dephase faster. The Y gradient is also associated with a coronal slice. So these slices are going which direction? From what to what? What gives you coronal?
A to P.
A to P. So right next to it, A to P. Coronal slice, A to P. So that gradient is turning on in a linear fashion, A to P, meaning one side is more positive, one side is more negative. All right, Z gradient is associated with axial slices. So that gives us slices going which way?
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom, or let's be a little more medical. What's a good way that we could say top to bottom?
Head to foot.
What's that?
Superior to
Head to foot.
Superior to inferior.
Both are correct. Head to foot or superior to inferior. Sometimes you'll see head to foot on some scanners. All right, so Tisha just started knocking these out after she figured. So sagittal slice, X gradient. So sagittal slices go from what direction? Which way to which way?
Front to back.
Front to back, good. No, wait, no.
no.
Isn't it left to
It's-
right?
Left to
Yeah,
right.
left to right. I couldn't think.
Back would be
Right to left.
right to left. Okay, right to left or left to right. All right, incoherent, out of phase. Remember, we had those spins, and if they're in phase, they're going to be at the same spot along that clock. But if they're out of phase or incoherent, they're going to be at different points along that clock. So draw a couple of different spins, one at 3 o'clock, one at 9 o'clock. Out of phase, incoherent. In phase, coherent. All right, our T1 recovery curve is what you see off to the right. So remember, a tissue is considered fully recovered once it's recovered up to 63%. So remember, highlight that 63% because that's just an arbitrary number where we consider tissues fully recovered. And you can see why, because it's pretty much hit that plateau, almost at that plateau. T2 decay curve, your slope should be going down, hence the name, decay. So we start at 100% signal and then we end at 0. And you should see that 37% of our signal is remaining when you considered a tissue fully decayed. Or you could say a tissue has decayed 63%. So either way, so see how the 63, if you subtract 63 from 100, you get 37. So just know how they might ask you in a kind of a funky way on the registry. You have 63, are your tissues decayed by 63%, or you have only 37% remaining. That's the verbiage you should remember. All right, you're weighting, how your images should look. T2 weighted. Fluid is bright. Always go to the fluid first. CSF, bright. We know this is a T2 weighted image. Also, your white matter is darker than your gray matter. So if you could kind of see the white matter, which is close to the, no, a little bit more in there, Tisha. White matter is closer to the ventricles. Go in even a little bit more in. Yeah, that's your white matter. And then your gray matter's out a little bit more towards the periphery. So your white matter is actually darker on a T2. And remember, fat, I can't talk today, it's been a while. Fat is also bright on a T2 weighted image. And that's due to what we call J coupling. We'll talk about that more, where due to it being a fast spin echo pulse sequence, our fat keeps getting knocked back up, so we have higher signal from fat. But just know that fluid is bright, it's a T2. Quick association. PD, fluid is gray. We have proton density weighted image. Remember, you can really see the difference between our white and gray matter on a PD. So see how the white matter is really, it's kind of darker scale gray, and then our white matter next to it is a little brighter. Your white matter is a little more gray, and then your gray matter is a little bit more bright. It's hard to associate those when you say white and gray. All right, T1, fluid is dark. So find that corpus callosum, Tisha, and the fluid's right underneath that, it's dark. Or you could also look next to the spinal cord in the front or the back, it's dark. So it's T1. Another way that you know the subcutaneous tissue is fat is bright. All right, so when we talking about how our spins align within B sub 0, we talk about how they align either parallel or anti-parallel. Another term for anti-parallel is spin down. And those spins have high energy because they can oppose B sub 0. So I came around to the clinical sites, and Nushin was talking about how Bill Faulkner describes some of these things in a very easy way to understand it. And he describes them saying, like you're swimming against a slow current or a very fast current with these spins. So it takes more energy to spin against a very fast current. So the higher B sub 0, the more energy it's going to take for those spins to be opposed to B sub 0 or anti-parallel. And then let's just go over parallel is low energy, and they're also called spin up. So those are all interchangeable descriptors of the same thing. So parallel, spin up, low energy should always be associated with each other. Anti-parallel, spin down, high energy should always be associated with each other. All right, so when we're talking about how to get our desired image weighting for a TR and TE, we need long and long TR/TE for a T2 weighted image. We need a long TR to diminish T1, and we need a long TE to highlight T2. So that's how you get a T2 weighted image. Just the opposite for a T1, the next one down. You need a short TR and it's short TE. And remember, I give you the ranges on those PowerPoint slides, and you should probably have an idea of what a good TR and TE is for each T1, T2 proton density. But remember, those are on the slides. But short TR to highlight your T1 contrast, and a short TE to diminish T2. All right, the next one we haven't talked about is your inversion recovery pulse sequence diagram. So the main thing that I know they were probably hard to see because they're small little cards. I tried to copy and paste and make them bigger, but the site didn't allow me. Just circle that first inversion recovery pulse at the top, Tisha, that 180 inverting pulse. Remember, you start this pulse sequence with a 180-degree inverting pulse. Next one, dual spin echo pulse sequence diagram, and you're creating two images. That's how you get the name, dual spin echo. So you have a T2 and a proton density. And what really is going on is you have two echoes that you're recording. So circle those echoes. There's one a little bit to the right, Tisha, and then the one to the, So you have echo, two different echo times, E and F. The shorter echo time, E, is associated with the proton density, and then the longer echo time is associated with the T2. But remember, they share the same TR because they both have long TRs. All right, the next one is a simple conventional spin echo pulse sequence diagram. So you might see it CSE instead of just SE. And this is where you just have one echo per TR. One echo per TR. You have a 180-degree refocusing pulse. So on that first line, you have, well, you can't actually see it, but the slice select is associated with it. So it almost made it harder because it only gave you a little bit of the diagram. All right, next, our free induction decay. So this is what happens to our signal after our RF pulse is turned off. Remember, we have usually with a spin echo, we have a 90-degree flip angle. Flips that net magnetic vector into the transverse plane. But then imagine this is your T2 axis. As you turn that off, that signal or that vector starts to realign with your longitudinal axis. And this is what the signal looks like in the receiver coil as it slowly diminishes. That's why it's called free induction decay, because the signal's slowly going down. So draw it from the top down. That's what it is. Free induction decay. Next one, fast spin echo, or also sometimes if you want to X out that F but just put a T, turbo spin echo pulse sequence diagram. And you should be clued into this because it has multiple 180-degree refocusing pulses. So see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 180-degree refocusing pulses. That's your echo train length, 5 ETL. So it makes it 5 times faster. All right, extrinsic contrast parameters. So this was one of the slides on your image weighting and contrast PowerPoint. So extrinsic contrast parameters, are those things that we can change, or are they inherent?
We cannot change those. Well, no, we
No, we
can't.
can change it.
can.
Can change.
So extrinsic, we can change. So think extrinsic, they're outside of like the patient's body and the scanner. They're things that we can change external to what's already inherent within the system. So these are things that we can change, like the TR, the TI, which stands for inversion time, TE, echo time, flip angle, ETL, echo train length, and B value. So those are all things that we can change on our MR console. Those are all parameters. All right, the next one, intrinsic. These are things inherent to the system or the patient. These are things that we can't change. You have a T1 recovery time for every tissue. You have a T2 decay time for every tissue, depending on the field strength. Those are things that we cannot change, but we can manipulate the weighting of the image by changing your TR and your TE. But in terms of how those tissues relax and decay, it's always going to be the same amount of time, depending on field strength. Your proton density, remember how many spins you have per volume of tissue. So your lungs don't have as many hydrogen spins compared to like your brain tissue. Your blood flow, can't change that. Your CSF flow. And your ADC, that's a calculation of your diffusion weighted image. So that's something inherent to the system. ADC stands for apparent diffusion coefficient. That is basically just a calculation. We can't change that. All right, long and short. So if you have one long and one short, always know that's proton density. But the long is associated with the TR and the short is associated with T. And that's to diminish your T2 properties and your T1 properties so that the image is just truly based on how many spins you have in those voxels, your spin density or your proton density. So those two terms are interchangeable, spin density and proton density. Resonance, so you can see from the picture, if you hit one note, as long as it's a matching note, it will resonate the other ones. You will not have resonance, say if that was a C note and then the other ones were a D note. So they have to have the same frequency or precessional frequency. That's why it's so important that our precessional frequencies match up. Because if we don't have matching of that precessional frequency, we're not going to get any image on our console. And that helps with selecting a particular slice, because we set our transmit bandwidth to a certain precessional frequency, and it excites a particular slice within a patient. So always associate transmit bandwidth with slice selection. All right, our isotope we use to create our image is what we call hydrogen protium. And why do we use hydrogen? Why do we excite hydrogen?
Because it's the most abundant that we have in our body.
Perfect. We have a lot of hydrogen, whether it's in our fat, whether it's in the fluid within our body. We know that we're mostly comprised of fluid, but we also have hydrogen within other tissues, mainly fat. All right, scan time equation. So fast spin echo. So you take your conventional spin echo and then just divide it by your echo train length. So your conventional spin echo is TR times number of phase encodings times next number of excitations. So if you want to X out that next, another word that you could put there or another acronym is number of signal averages, NSA. So next and NSA mean the same thing depending on the vendor. (3D scan time equation, basically it's TR times number of phase encodings times next times the number of slices. The most common way they'll try and trick you on the registry is instead of saying number of slices, they'll say slice thickness. It's not the thickness of the slice, it's how many slices we want to acquire. Voxel volume, it's our pixel area. So whatever we calculated to get the pixel area, that's two-dimensional. And then now we have to add in that third dimension, which is the slice thickness. So this is where slice thickness does come into play, not the number of slices. So pixel area times the thickness of that pixel gives you your three-dimensional pixel, which is called a voxel. All right, next one, the Larmor equation, which is denoted by W0, which is your precessional frequency or your Larmor frequency, equals B0, which is your static magnetic field strength, 1.5, 3 Tesla, 0.7 Tesla, whatever magnet you're working on, times, what is that lambda sign?
42 is the constant, 4257.
So Nushin's got it, but what is it? What's the definite? What is that constant?
Gyromagnetic ratio.
Gyromagnetic ratio of hydrogen, because every different isotope has its own gyromagnetic ratio value, but it is 42.57. Good job, Nushin.
Mhm.
All right, next one, let's see. All right, so you're constantly balancing these things when you're trying to create a good quality image. So we know we need to have high signal, high SNR, you need to have low scan time, and then you need to have high spatial resolution. So sometimes you can get high signal, but you can't get good spatial resolution. That's okay, depending on what you're scanning. Sometimes you need really good spatial resolution and really good signal, but that's going to bump up your scan time. So this is that we're constantly balancing, we're juggling these three things. And we know if you usually increase your signal, your resolution is going to go down. Those are indirectly related. So SNR, spatial resolution, indirectly related. This is a picture of a magnetic moment created by net spin. So the only thing that's cutting off is usually there's a north pole and a south pole. And that was on the image, but the card cut it off. North and south, just put a north and south pole on that. So if you have if a hydrogen spin is rotating due to net spin, it'll create a magnetic moment. So don't get it confused with the next one. It's the secondary spin. So once you put that hydrogen proton in the static magnetic field, it will precess around the static magnetic field. So this is what we call secondary spin around B sub 0. It's called precession, and it's usually described as like a dreidel spinning. And at the very end, when it's wobbling. So when you spin that dreidel right at the beginning, it's really fast and it's not wobbling. Until it's about to fall and stop moving, that's the wobble we're talking about. Secondary spin around B sub 0. And the dreidel is obviously the magnetic field that's causing it is Earth's magnetic field, which is stronger. All right, the next one's K-space. It's cutting off some things, but you have your phase axis up and down and your frequency axis left and right. And remember, K-space is very symmetrical, so the top equals the bottom, the left equals the right. The number of rows are your number of phase encodings. So each row is your number of phase encodings, and then your data points along, going right to left, is your frequency encoding. The middle of K-space is associated with what? Middle of K-space.
SNR.
SNR, and then the periphery of K-space is associated with what?
The
All of the
spatial resolution.
parts of the image that's put together to make what we see.
Nushin had it a little bit better. Just your spatial resolution is going to be your spatial res. So middle is SNR, periphery spatial resolution. All right, so turn on 2 or more gradients at the same time. You're going to get an oblique slice. We know that. All right, narrow receiver bandwidth. So don't get this confused with transmit bandwidth. Receiver bandwidth, we're collecting the signal. So if we have a narrow receiver bandwidth, we're going to get more signal because we're going to reduce the noise by filtering it out. So that's what we're doing. That pink area is the filter, and we're just collecting the signal, and then we're basically eliminating the noise in the periphery. So a narrow receiver bandwidth will increase your SNR because it decreases your noise. All right, pixel area is your field of view. And just remember to change your field of view if it's in centimeters to millimeters, divided by your frequency matrix times field of view divided by your phase matrix. And which, if you had two numbers of your matrix, say you had 256 by 192, which one's your phase, which one's your frequency?
The phase would be the 190 something.
Yep, good job, Markavi. The smaller number is always going to be your phase. Remember, the short axis is associated with your phase encoding direction. Scan time equation for conventional spin echo is TR times phase encoding steps times next, or NSA, number of signal averages. Are these the last two, Tisha? Okay. All right. Flare. What does flare stand for?
Fluid attenuation inversion recovery.
Good. Fluid FL attenuating A IR, inversion recovery. All right, so what happens is follow that blue line down, Tisha. You can start off and it at the top there, yep, and then it inverts completely 180, all your tissues, and then all your tissues start to recover. And if you select a TI time that is long, you're going to nullify fluid. So remember, it's called fluid attenuating because we're nullifying by selecting a TI that is long. So when fluid crosses that transverse plane, that's basically when we start the pulse sequence, and you'll have zero longitudinal magnetization of fluid. So if we flip it into the transverse plane, if there's nothing to flip into the transverse plane, you'll get zero signal from that tissue. So a little bit different from our STIR. So STIR stands for what?
Short tau inversion recovery.
Short tau inversion recovery. S short tau, TAU, inversion recovery. So just like its name says, our TI or our tau should be short because we're trying to nullify fat this time. So see how fat recovers a lot quicker than fluid? So as that fat crosses that transverse axis, we set our TI time short, and then we start our pulse sequence. Any questions?
I think I understand the concept just fine. I just wasn't used to associating some of these things with that particular thing.
Yeah. And then, I mean, that's the first time you guys have seen that, but that's what I want you guys to really practice because, like I said, honestly, it's hard to remember all these concepts, but if you have how they relate, that's half the battle. All right, so that is basically our summer review in a very quick review puzzle. So I want to do a safety review. So I am going to do the Jeopardy game one more time. So let me share my screen. So we've played this game before, but let's see if you guys remember.
How do you want us to buzz? I forgot.
Why don't we alter, or just like a hands up, or how did we do it before? Thumbs up, I think it is.
I think thumbs up, yeah.
Thumbs up, okay. Now let me get everybody's picture on here. All right, Tisha, since you were able to complete the puzzle, why don't you start us off?
FDA limits 500.
FDA limit for static magnetic field for clinical imaging of patients over 1 month of age. Go ahead, Tisha.
8 Tesla?
I couldn't hear you.
8 Tesla? 8.
8 Tesla. Good job. All right. Board still yours.
Zones and personnel for 500.
Level 1 personnel have blank MR safety education training. Shamarva. You're muted, I think.
Very little MR as safety education training.
Level 1 personnel. Good job. Been a while since I've done these, so honestly, you guys are probably just as good as me. All right, Shamarva, you're up. What were the 3 levels, by the way? Well, I mean, there's 3 categories, but remember, there's 3 levels: non, level 1, level 2. Hopefully, that's not a question, but it probably is. Go ahead.
Let's go to emergency 500.
During a quench, you should evacuate to avoid these things. Tisha, what were the 3 things? You gotta get all 3 of them.
Mean to forget, but you don't want asphyxiation. You don't wait. Yeah, asphyxiation. Things like
Yeah,
and like the tympanic membrane.
rupture tympanic membrane. Okay.
Was that not 3? Asphyxiation,
I only heard 2.
asphyxiation, frostbite, and tympanic membrane.
Nice.
Okay. Oof. Almost lost 500.
Good job. Asphyxiation is just suffocation too. Sounds like a terrible way to go out, right?
Okay. Screening and monitoring 500.
Important to further screen the patient following discovery of surgeries involving the blank and blank. Marcavia.
The orbits and as orbits in brain.
Well, brain and orbit is kind of in the same realm. So brain.
So orbits and heart, thoracic.
There you go. Head and chest. I think it was just kind of broad. That's why I gave you kind of a clue. Head and chest. Obviously, what's in the head that would really concern you guys?
That's aneurysm clip.
Aneurysm clips,
What's in the chest that would really
defibrillators.
all different types of defibrillators, but anything that has an electronic component, obviously, or is made out of ferromagnetic material. All right, Mark, what do you got?
Zones and personnel 400.
Okay. According to the white paper, MR safety versus are identified into levels whereby level 2 personnel include Shamarva.
Anyone who has had training for the MRI areas.
Okay, give me a
They haven't had extensive training.
Rachel, what do you get?
They have had extensive training.
And so give me an example of a person that has had extensive training.
Like us. A tech.
Oh,
Tech or MD, think, radiologist.
Yeah.
All right, Rachel, you're up.
Emergency for 300.
Most important element needed to maintain an MRI safe, Shamarba.
that would be helium, cryogen helium.
Oh, no. Just how do you maintain a safe environment? I think Rachel. You're too much of like the actual like scientific element.
Not the scientific element.
No. Go ahead, Rachel.
You screen.
Screening. Screening's actually not it. Anybody else?
What about the temperature?
No.
No temperature for, okay.
What do you got?
Education.
You got to educate your staff and
Oh.
how to do all that screening and all that. So first we got to educate, and then obviously you do need to screen. You do need to worry about the cryogen level. You do need to worry about the temperature, but you need to educate. Education is key, as we are getting. All right, go ahead, Keisha.
Terminology 500.
All right. Blank magnetic fields have been documented to cause muscle contraction, cardiac arrhythmias. Rosemary.
Radiant.
Yep. Good job. Also called time-bearing magnetic fields.
Terminology for 400.
Terminology for device implant modified a few years ago, whereby the term MR blank has replaced. I think it was Rachel.
Conditional.
Well, it's this.
Oh, sorry. MR. Sorry, I read the thing. MR safe was replaced with MR conditional.
No, it wasn't actually, because the MR safe is still MRI safe, but there was a term for this new sheen before it was conditional.
Compatible?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are compatible. Good job, Nushi. So it went from compatible to conditional. So a lot of older texts still might say compatible. Go ahead, Nushi.
FDA limit 400.
Okay. It is blank for all patients to be provided with hearing protection in the form of Shamarba. Muted.
It is required for all patients to be provided with hearing protection in the form of hearing the foam, hearing the foam, the foam things, earplugs, the foam earplugs.
I won't penalize you for having a brain fart.
Thank you, sorry.
Headphones or earplugs. All right. So it used to be recommended, actually, which was crazy.
Yeah, because it would tear up people's ears.
Now it is required. So, and it's really at a certain decibels. And remember, do you guys remember what decibels it has?
Is it 180?
Not 180.
Oh, 120.
So yeah, at 120, but it's like if it's exceeding 100, that's the thing, because it's like usually the machine is operating at 120, but if you put headphones or earplugs in, it reduces it below that threshold of 100 decibels. So this one's kind of changed and been updated since I created this PowerPoint. All right, go ahead, Shamarba.
Let's do screening and monitoring for 400.
It's good practice. The L patients undergo MRI. Tisha, to be
Visual and verbal.
good. How do you visually watch this patient?
Like through the camera and then.
Yeah, I mean, that's a more complicated question than it sounds, but imagine if you didn't have a window straight through the bore of the magnet, you have to have a camera. So every department that you guys go to, if you can't see the bore and see that patient's, like, you know, their chest going up and down or their head, you need to have a camera. So that would be against code if you didn't have a camera going down the bore. All right. Go ahead, Tisha.
Emergency for 400.
If a patient has a heart attack while undergoing the technology should what? Marcavia.
Ooh. Well, if they're having a heart attack, you should stop the scan.
Okay. Good job. Stop the scan and then remove the scan room as quickly as possible. So, and why is that important? Remove them out of the room as quickly as possible.
Well, because you need certain equipment that can't go into the scan room.
Yeah, that life-saving equipment is all ferromagnetic. If they need to intubate, those defibrillators, those are no-nos. All right, Marcavia.
Zones and personnel 300.
Zone 2 signage areas intended for what type of patient? Shamarva.
Screened patients.
Ooh, unscreened.
Oh,
That one even got me. So
really?
there's a barrier between zone 2 and zone 3, or that's where the screening process happens. Zone 2 is, remember, they're still just getting changed. They're filling out that screening form, but between zone 2 and zone 3 is where that threshold changes.
Yeah, because I'm usually screening them there. So I was thinking about where we were at EP. I'm like, I screened those people there.
Yeah, but every department, those lines blur a little bit in every department, but zone 2, they're still filling out the screening form. They're getting changed. Zone 3, they have been screened by me or you or any MR tech.
Gotcha.
Just know that a registry question is commonly a screened patient is always in zone 3 and 4. You can't have an unscreened patient in zone 3 or 4. So that threshold is between 2 and 3. All right. I don't know who. Shamarva, why don't you pick?
Let's do terminology for 300.
Effect by which a patient may experience seeing stars. What's that called? Rachel, is that fancy word?
The magnetophosphine beam.
Got it. All right. Board yours.
Screening and monitoring 300.
Sedated patients must always be monitored with what? Tisha.
Pulse oximeter.
Yep. That's the very least, but usually everybody's monitored with not only pulse ox, but EKG. And remember, MRIs, all this MRI safe stuff. EKG. Sometimes they do the CO2. They'll do blood pressure also. So that's just the bare minimum. All right, Tisha.
FDA limit 300.
FDA guidelines dictate level of concern when an RSO produces. Rachel, I didn't even have a chance to read it all.
1 degree Celsius. Because I got it wrong last time. I said Fahrenheit.
Nice. All right. Board's yours. See how getting something wrong, it just ingrains in your memory.
FDA 200.
Full body SAR for over minutes scanning. New Sheen.
4.
For what?
per what kilogram something? Okay.
Always gotta have the unit, y'all. Watts per kilogram. That's always gonna be SAR unit. Watts per kilogram. Good job. All right, Nushi.
Okay. FDA limits 100.
What temperature, humidity should the room be in? These are ranges. Jamile, you're muted.
I'm not sure, but I think it's 1 centigrade.
What's that?
1 centigrade.
No. Nushin.
Is it 65 to 75 Fahrenheit?
Okay, that's the temperature, but what about our humidity? I think that's the temperature.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's our humidity based at?
65 to, I think 65 to 75. I don't remember.
Anybody have the humidity? That one's tough. It's a range again.
All I remember was what Nushin said, and I wasn't sure if it said in thumbs up.
50 to 70% humidity. So the number on the left is temperature, and this is in Fahrenheit.
Oh, okay.
See how, this is where the FDA sets this. So it's like, that's why it's Fahrenheit. But the SAR is in degrees Celsius because that's usually, I think that was set by European standards. So temperature 65, 75, humidity 50 to 70, all to keep temperature down because remember we're heating them up. And if you have a very humid situation, you might potentially have a RF burn situation. All right, Nushin.
Okay, it's the screening monitoring 200.
What is the name of the trusted online database with all those references? Shamarva.
MRIsafety.com.
Nice. Anybody visit that since they've been in clinic? Tisha?
I looked at it once.
Okay.
We had a dude with a spring, and he had done it done a while ago. So me and Ruthie spent like 30 minutes going through the website, and like it was crashing on the computer. And then so I was like, try your phone. So she tried her phone, and then first had to go get x-rays, and then they just didn't end up getting scanned.
Did you say a spring?
Yeah, he has a lazy eye. So for that, they like years ago in like the 1990s sometime, he got a spring put in to help with that.
So there was no metal on the x-rays?
Oh, so they couldn't decide, and so they just ruled it out. Like the radiologist couldn't decide because he didn't know what he had in his body, and the x-rays couldn't tell him anything. So they just decided.
See? Good. Research is half your job. If you guys thought your research was done with your research paper this fall, you are mistaken. You're going to be researching the rest of your career.
It's actually the reason why I knew it so well, because me and Jody were talking about that exact thing. Because I said you can have a spring in your eyelid. That I've never heard of that, because I thought he was just talking about a removable eye, because some people have a glass eye. So we were actually kind of looking it up.
I think a spring is for the eyelid. I think.
For the eyelid, yeah, I was like, I didn't know people could do that.
All right. I think Nushin, you're still up, maybe.
So that was me. I said MRIsafety.com.
Yeah.
Can't remember where we were at, but I guess emergency 200.
Two areas of the body the most sensitive. Tisha.
Your gonads and your eyes. Terminology 200.
What's this? Jimmy.
Yeah, I think I can answer. MRI conditional.
Not compatible, conditional. Good job. All right, Jamila, you're up.
Yes, terminology 100.
Okay. SAR stands for? Marcavia.
Specific absorption rate.
Markavia?
Zones 200.
Consoles located where? Rosemary.
Zone
3.
three.
You're muted, Rosemary.
Zone 3.
Nice. All right, what you got?
Screening and monitoring for 100.
Minimal acceptable method detection for Rachel.
X-ray.
Or CT.
CT.
Yeah, if you needed it, CT. And maybe a time saver. Patients never had x-rays of their orbits, but if they've had a CT of their head, you could always tell the radiologist they've had a previous CT of their head, check that, see if they have any metal within their orbits. All right, what you got, Rachel?
Emergency for
Rotational forces can cause paramagnetic. Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
that was totally an accident.
What you got?
But I know what it is. It's if it's okay if I answer if nobody's mad at me. It's torque, I think.
I honestly think that's how some people play Jeopardy. They just answer as quickly without even reading. All right, last one. How many left? Oh, and I answered it myself. Markavia, what do you got?
I didn't really try to. And then they're cutting grass. Okay, hold on. How many levels are there? Oh, 3.
MRI, level 1, level 2. All right, and then the final Jeopardy. You guys can all.
Did you say it out loud?
Remember Matt's presentation. What is the safest way to get them out of the room? So we want to move them as slowly, or we don't even remember. We if we can, we should call Matt or the physician first, ask them what we should do, and then if they tell you to move them out of the machine, you move them out very uniformly out of the scan. Tell them not to move right to left, because remember, all those flux lines are all running down parallel, and just get them as slowly out of harm's way. Good. Hopefully that jogged your memory on safety. So
We all remembered a lot, so that's pretty cool.
You guys did excellent. So this is the physics review. So do the puzzle as many times as you want. Do the Kahoots as many times as you want. Read the article. Go over your PDF. But remember, for your MRI quiz, if it really came down to it, to help do the actual quiz, read the study guides before you actually take the quiz. Okay?
Where's the study guide?
The study guides are on the left. Just here's the.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And then the quizzes are on the right. And then for procedures, we already kind of did an MRI safety review with that Jeopardy. You could always play that as many times as you want. But I also, we had another Jeopardy I was going to do today, but we were kind of running short on time. But we have the instrumentation you can play. And then you have your review worksheets that we did all the answers for in class. You can just, print those out. And then remember, for the MRI safety, it's going to be on MRI All-in-One under end of chapter exam. Make sure you screenshot it before you X out, because you have to take it again. All right, last thing. I know it's been a long day, but I'm not going to see you for a couple weeks. I'm going on vacation next week, so just a heads up, from Monday to Friday next week. But I'll be checking on you guys maybe for the next couple days in clinic if I get around. Main thing also, remember to put on in eValue not only MRI minor track, but MRI senior clinical too. So course and track, MRI, not senior diagnostic, MRI. So make sure you guys do that because, you know, I let you guys slide since it was brand new last semester, but make sure you're doing all that correctly in eValue. But that's really it. You guys have any other questions for me before I don't see you for a while? No?
Thank you.
All right. Well, good luck studying on your own. I am available by email, even on vacation. I might check it like once a day if there's anything dire emergency. But other than that, enjoy clinic the next couple of weeks, and I will catch base with you in a couple weeks.
Have a fun vacation. I hope that your daughter gets well really quickly.
Yeah, and I might send you guys an email saying if it's a boy or a girl.
Yes, please do. I'm excited.
Enjoy clinic.
Thank you.
Guys.
Bye.